What's up? What it do? Zion Williams. Welcome back to the DC Blacks channel, man. Thanks for all the subscribers. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, the notification button, the like button if you like the content. As I told you, I wanted to switch the content up a little bit, but let me just get to this because this really is a short interactive video. So people that follow me from other times before I got on this YouTube journalism, like I cover everything. And for me, I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment. For those of y'all who don't know what the Second Amendment is, the Second Amendment is the part of the Constitution that gives every American citizen the right to bear arms. However, if you convicted of a crime, most of the time you lose your right to bear arms, okay? Everybody should know that. Now, I know there's a lot of people who don't care about the right to bear arms, but let me give you just a slight understanding of why I care. I live in a city that's quote unquote dangerous and has been the murder capital before. And for many years, while this city, Washington, D.C. that I live in was the murder capital, if you didn't own a firearm, as one of my grandparents did, and it was quote unquote grandfathered in, as I understand, you never had the right to bear arms here. Now, you could have been a special police officer. And even those people at one point in time had to only use their weapon or carry their weapon at work. That's insane. But nevertheless, there's a case called Keller, I believe, is out of D.C. I'm going to go into it to show y'all how it's not what you know, it's who you know and how you do it, right? But for decades, law-abiding citizens couldn't own firearms in Washington, D.C. other than a big shotgun. I'm talking about a pistol or carrying with a license. And then these people came here and they filed these cases, and these cases went all the way to the top, like almost to the Supreme Court. If you look the cases up, some of these cases, when I said almost to the Supreme Court, because the Van Buren case out of New York, for any legal eagles that's on here that want to fine-tooth comb everything I say. I know that the Van Buren case is the one that went to the Supreme Court. Please don't play with me. But nevertheless, the case that came out of Washington, D.C. also cemented and passed a lot of laws. And they just had a case that come out of Maryland. So this video right here, I'm doing it for the Second Amendment advocates and the advocates of people that go to prison, and when they come home and they have served they have served their time and they've paid their debt to society. If being an American citizen is a part of, if a part of being an American citizen is your right to vote, your right to hold office, and your right to bear arms, then I think that at a certain point in time, American citizens should get their rights back. Now, I grew up as a young guy that went back and forth to the country. My parents my parents were born here, but my grandparents came from the country to Washington, D.C. In the country, we knew how to throw knives, shoot arrows, fire rifles, load pistols, make cartridges, slaughter lamb, slaughter pig. So I'm just saying, let me know what y'all think. I see that this person that I'm about to show you this video of speaks about both aspects of gun ownership for felons. Even violent felons, because remember, violent felons have paid their debt to society as well. But I know I talk I criticize things that I don't like. So I criticize Trump sending all these quote unquote immigrants to an El Salvadorian prison. I'm going to do a video on that later. But this right here, I didn't hear Trump speak on it, and I'm going to go do further research. But in this clip I'm about to show y'all, and I do want everybody's comments. I want to make this an issue. I want to see what the people that follow this, whether they be from the urban culture or they be from mainstream culture, what do you think about felons after they have served their time, completed their probation, their supervision, and established some type of conduct that has been criminal, have established some type of conduct that is not criminal conduct for a certain period of time. Like I got a buddy of mine, I'm not going to mention his name at this point in time, but hopefully I could get an interview from him. He came up He's a few years older than me. He came up like me. He made some mistakes as a juvenile. He made some mistakes as a young adult. But after he served his time, and altogether, he served over 20-some years in prison. He changed his life. He started a business. He started different type of things. Now he's successful, and he got his case sealed. All his crime sealed. So the next process for him is to apply to have his rights restored. I'm a big guy. I'm a big supporter of having the rights restored. But tell me what y'all think. I know I'm going to get a whole bunch of comments. For those who feel as though a felon should never have his rights back, his gun rights back, explain to me why. For those who think that the felon should at one point in time have his rights back, what kind of hurdle should we have to jump to be able to get those rights back? Now, little known fact for people outside of DC, and I do believe it's from other places. I want to say it may be 7 other jurisdictions. I don't have my notes with me right now. Like I said, it's just a thought off the top of my head. But as a person convicted of a felony in the District of Columbia, when you are released, you automatically get your right to hold office back, according to what I've read, and your right to vote back. And in prison, even in federal prison, y'all remember this. Guys from Washington, D.C. may be the only guys in federal prison that can vote locally. There's pictures and videos I've shown on different media outlets that I have of guys from Washington, D.C. voting. But let me know. I think it's going to be, people want to beef with Trump about everything else he said, but I think this is going to be a major issue for guys that have changed their life to be able to get their Second Amendment rights back. Free to real. Let me know what you think.
Is considering a way for convicted felons to restore their access to legally owning a firearm. Queen City News anchor Alicia Barnes and Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes takes us through those arguments.
The Justice Department is releasing plans to create a process for those with criminal convictions to restore their gun rights. So this decision sparking alarm that it will return firearms to those of convicted violent crimes. The interim rule follows an executive order from President Donald Trump last month directing a review of the country's gun restrictions to assess any ongoing infringements. Let's bring in our Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes to this conversation. Lots to discuss here because restoring gun rights to those who have been convicted of violent crimes. Laying out the argument here for us, it says that a lot of people are concerned. Why?
Well, I mean, there's arguments for both sides in this situation. You have on the one side folks that are saying that the government should not be infringing on folks' constitutional rights to bear arms. And on the other side, you have folks that are saying there needs to be some common sense legislation and regulations, specifically rulemaking process that actually limits folks that can have guns. In this situation, you're talking about people convicted of felonies, but in all other instances, you're talking about folks that are domestic violence, people that have prior drug use. That was the Hunter Biden situation when attempting to get a firearm. And so a number of things are put in place by the ATF to ensure that folks that check one of those boxes, either a violent crime, either a domestic violence, or someone that is on drugs or had drug use issues in the past, don't have guns fall into their hands. And so that's why these regulations have been put in place. I should say these rules have been put in place to try to deter and stop folks from having guns in their hands. On the other side, folks are saying, look, in any type of regulation that stops folks from getting access to guns is a bad idea. And right now, that fight has been going on for a long time, and this is the president saying, I want to get an examination of that in February. And today, this interim rule, is something that the ATF is saying, as they'll go forward, will be the new rule.
So the DOJ now, under this proposal, they were very specific about who this would benefit. Explain that a little bit.
I mean, you're talking about folks with violent crimes. I mean, this is it's as specific as you can get. At the end of the day, these are folks that typically, if you were convicted of a crime, you would have been barred from having access to a firearm. And now they're saying, no, you will not be barred from having access to a firearm. And so that's why I say I have mixed feelings about this, specifically as someone that defends people that are charged with these types of crimes. Once you've committed the crime, you've been sentenced, you've done your time, you've paid your restitution, you've been on probation, you've been on some type of post relief. This additional infringement to say, look, now you still can't vote or you can't own a firearm is an additional hurdle for you to be reintegrated into society. And so I do understand and appreciate how folks are saying, well, listen, this person is done. They've served their sentence. Restore them fully to being an American citizen. But on the other hand, I can see that there is a secondary effect of someone that has committed a crime in the past. The likelihood is now higher that they may commit a crime, specifically if the original crime was a violent crime. So I can understand and appreciate both arguments.
So also to be able to point out here, they said that no constitutional right is limitless and they would now be screening out others. Specifically, what does that language mean? Is it kind of like what along the lines of what you just said about who should be able to have their rights?
It is. It is. I mean, and that's what the argument is. What talking about it's not limitless. Most of these gun rights advocates are saying that the president is attempting to do this unilaterally. While I think he is using his executive powers to do a number of things unilaterally, I think in this situation, this is how the administrations and agencies are supposed to work. ATF is there to formulate and promulgate rules. There should be and it needs to be a rulemaking process where you have an opportunity for public citizens to comment on the proposed rulemaking change. And that process is the part that should be happening now. Here's this interim rule. These are the changes that we're thinking about making, and let us know how you feel about that. That's the problem that folks will say. If you're not having that rule-making policy discussion with everyday citizens, now you're overreaching your ability. But outside of that, I think this process is exactly how our agencies are set up. And if you rewind it months ago, the same folks that are now in power were saying the ATF doesn't have the ability to do these types of things. But now they are making the ATF do the things that they want to see done.
Khalif Rhodes, we appreciate your insight. Thanks so much.